have this session for other people who might want to listen to it. Well, my name is Cristina Lasch, and I'm based in the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, in the beautiful land of the Maya, and it's a pleasure to be here with all of you. So before we begin, we would like to acknowledge past, present, and emerging traditional and indigenous custodians, elders, and ancestral spirits of the territories where we live and work. All right, and now I'd like for our co-hosts to please present yourselves. So Andrew, you want to go first?
Hi, I'm Andrew Bridges. I'm in San Diego, California, and excited to work on this with you today, or this morning, or this evening, as the case may be.
Thanks, Andrew. Sarah?
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Cotter with Parks Canada. I'm based in Victoria, BC. And yeah, so glad to see so many faces here.
Thanks, Sarah. Heather?
Hi, everyone. I'm based out of the Ottawa area of Canada, and I'll be helping facilitate one of the breakouts today. Look forward to getting to know you.
Thank you. And we will also have another colleague, Quinn Shurtliff, who will be facilitating as well, but he's ending another meeting, so he will join us in a bit today. And we won't have time for introductions from all of you as participants, but if you could please help us introduce yourselves in the chat. Tell us your name. Well, we know your name from the chat, but where you are based, that would be wonderful. And in the breakout discussion groups, we will have some time for you to do introductions. So what are we going to do today with all of you? Our session objectives are to learn from each other about innovations on how we can design smart and engaging and productive virtual sessions using the conservation standards, and also how to navigate some of the common challenges and how to make the best out of opportunities in group dynamics in our virtual settings. And while this session is not specifically designed to cover online tools, you will see some of these demonstrated, and we know that some of you will share what tools you are using and find practical and useful in the breakout room. So we look forward to also learning from you. What we will do is we will have some parts in plenary, as this part in the beginning, where we will get an overview of Miro, which is the whiteboard that we're going to use with you. Heather is going to conduct that. And then we will identify some of the common challenges that we face when conducting virtual meetings for the conservation standards. And we will do this to prioritize some of the key challenges. And then after our break, we will work in breakout groups for about an hour. So you will first complete a situation analysis for the challenge that is assigned to your group. And then you're going to brainstorm some solutions or strategies. And we will do a report out to the whole group after our break. And then we just have a few minutes to wrap up things. So that's what we're going to do today. I will stop sharing here and pass the baton on to Heather.
Thank you so much, Cristina, and welcome everyone. I'm going to take a few moments before we give you the link and the entrance code to Miro to just have everyone's attention as we get oriented to the Miro board. So I'm going to zoom all the way out so that we can see kind of the full scope of the board. I'll provide an orientation to the top row, and then later, as Cristina described, we'll move through in an interactive way the bottom rows. So what you will find when you come into Miro on the first frame is the tech orientation. So if you get lost or confused with Zoom, you can come in and have a look at the notes and instructions for using Zoom. Similarly, we have some basic Miro instructions, pointers for the different toolbars that you might need to use, but we'll also walk through those. We have our agenda, and you can see we've got some generous breaks in there, so you can time your needs by the clock. The next frame is links to materials, resources. We really tried to structure the Miro board, kind of simulating what we might use in an actual coaching situation. So that's one example of trying to centralize all of the resources for participants in one spot. Similarly, we have a legend of the conservation standards symbology. So anyone who forgets what their yellow hexagons are can come and have a look there. And we have a trusty parking lot. So you can come in here. All you need to do is to double click on a sticky and add your notes. And we have the water cooler or coffee machine. This is a virtual space where we can interact, we can chit chat via images and text. So you can feel free to come into this board on your breaks and add to the conversation. You just need to either upload an image from your computer, or you can go to the internet and copy, paste right into here. Okay, so this would be a great time to give you the link to the Miro board. If Cristina or Sarah could throw that into the chat so that you can come in and see for yourself. I'll just wait for folks to trickle in. All right, starting to see folks are joining. I'll keep sharing my screen so that if you get lost, you can reorient yourself with my screen. If you come in and it doesn't look anything like this, try your scrolling wheel on your mouse to zoom in or out. And we'll go over a few of the basic functionalities of Miro. The first thing that you probably want to do is go to the upper right-hand corner of your screen, and you'll see a toolbar there. There's an icon, a button with some sliders. You can click on that for settings. And what you want to do is to go into navigation mode to make sure that the settings are appropriate for whether you're using a mouse or the trackpad. So whichever one you're using, click apply for that. For those using your mouse, you can move around by clicking and dragging, and also zooming in and out using your scroll bar. And the cool thing about how Miro and Mural are set up is that you can really kind of infinitely zoom in and zoom out. There isn't so much of a kind of turning pages through an outline organization. So that's your upper right-hand toolbar. You might be seeing a lot of cursors from all the other collaborators on your screen, and you can turn those off. So on that same toolbar, the button over to the left will toggle between showing collaborators and not showing collaborators. So sometimes it can get very busy and you'll want to quieten the screen. As a facilitator, it's actually can be helpful to see where people are on the board in case you need to gather the group back together and focus in one area. Let's go over now to the toolbar on the left of your screen. And the most important button on that is at the top. That is the either a hand for panning or an arrow for selecting. Typically, when you come into Miro, it will be on the hand, which is good for clicking and dragging around, but not very good for selecting and editing. So what you'll want to do if you want to edit anything is to go and click on that arrow button and make sure that it is giving you the select and not the hand for panning. And maybe Cristina, you could invite everyone over to the parking lot where we can have a little bit of a practice session. What we'll want to do in the parking lot is just practice. You can double click on a sticky to add some comments, but we'll also want to be practicing adding shapes and connector. So in that toolbar on the left, you can click on a sticky note. You get to choose your color. You can just drag it right over. You can go one below that to a shape. Select the shape that you want and drag it over. Everyone's doing very well. And then the final skill that we need to master is connecting shapes. So this is one of the reasons that Miro is amazing for diagramming. Is all you need to do is click on one shape and you'll see the anchors appear. You click on one anchor and drag it to the shape that you want to attach it to. You can change that line. You can make it a straight line, a curvy line. And as you move, the shape should be moving to it if you get your anchors connected. So that gives us the basic skills of adding text to a sticky or a text box, creating connections between objects. You can also more manually create those connections by clicking on an object, going over to the toolbar on the left and selecting the connection line that you want. So well done, everyone. And this means that we're ready, I think, for our pop quiz. And we'll put those skills to test. We'll go all the way over to the left of the board. Hopefully we don't lose anyone, but oh, now our map has moved. Let's get that back to where, or let's just, yeah, I'm not able to move it. Maybe Cristina, you are. But what we would like you to do, and Cristina, if you could summon everyone over to the weather board, that would be great. What we want to do is invite you all to show us what the weather is like where you are. So grab one of the weather icons and drag it to your home. And if anyone is having a hard time finding the board, please pop your comments in the chat. I'd be happy to help you. Is the weather board moving for others? Is it looking okay? There's a lot of movement.
Can't get any of the symbols to move.
No, it's impossible.
Yeah, the symbol.
Cristina, do you know if they're locked? If you can unlock
Yeah,
them?
let me try to, I locked
They are
the
locked.
frame,
I got
but
one to
it
move
locked
before.
everything. So just a second.
Okay.
Will.
Thank you for your patience. And yeah.
I think a virtual training session wouldn't be complete without modeling some tech issues.
Yeah, the amount of time that goes into
It should allow you to move them now.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. We're back on. And that, yeah, if it's dark, someone has found a nighttime icon, but you could also just remember what the weather was today, previously. Yeah, I'm still having a hard time, Cristina. I guess maybe just grabbing the icons down from the bottom. Is that working for folks?
Let me,
Yeah.
it should be
If you
unlocked.
double click
but-
on them, you grab them. You just double click on them and it grabs them.
I'm on a Mac, and when I double click, it actually just zooms into about 400%. I can't do that with the trackpad.
I am finding the icons on the bottom are unlocked. So maybe try
Yeah.
grabbing one of those.
Yeah, they seem to be working for me.
We scripted this whole thing so you could see some of the pitfalls of virtual facilitation.
They are unlocked now on the top as well.
Okay, super. Great. So we're starting to see, yeah, some real weather patterns here with sunshine on the east coast of North America. We've got someone from way up north. Looks like, is that snow maybe? And then some windy conditions in Brazil, Mexico, and yeah, we've got sunshine in Australia and New Zealand, looking very nice. Okay, well done. Any questions? Anyone not able to move anything in Miro, or were you able to at least find one icon that you could drag around? All right. Okay, so we can move now. Cristina, if you wouldn't mind revealing the good and bad frame, we can move over there to the right. So what we would like you to do now is to think back on the last year or the last 2 years or however long you have been working in virtual workshops. And think about two things, the good and the bad. So what has worked well in the virtual workshops that you've either facilitated or been a participant in, things that we should really try to leverage, do more of, really bring into our best practices. And then over on the right, think about the things that have really not worked so well, that are still challenges that need to be thought through, are aspects of virtual workshops that are really kind of compromising our ability to facilitate effective conservation standards projects. So please put just one idea in each sticky, and you can contribute 3 ideas for good practices and 3 ideas for the so-called bad practices as well. If you see your idea already reflected by someone on the board, you're welcome to add a new idea. But we don't have too much redundancy. I'll give everyone a few minutes to have that pause and reflect on virtual facilitation. And
Heather,
so
Uh,
what you might start to see is a little bit of clustering. And so Sarah, I think, and maybe Cristina will be pitching in as well, are going to start to look for themes, particularly in the bad side of the board, because these are the problems that we're going to try and solve later on in our breakouts. So those orange stickies that you're seeing are the larger themes. And if you see your sticky drag down, that's because we think it belongs to one of those themes. If you have contributed your 3 ideas and want to help with the clustering, by all means, jump in.
Heather, and someone asked me if there's a way to hide the cursors. So you might want to remind us if it gets too busy for people.
Okay, so if you don't want to see everyone, go up to the left toolbar at the top of your screen, and all the way on the left, it says hide collaborators cursors. So that will clean things up for you really fast. The other tip that I'll throw in now that might be useful later in the session is you can also on that top toolbar select one of the people, one of the participants, and you can follow them. So particularly if it's a facilitator that you want to track and make sure, you know, wherever they go in the board, you're accompanying them, you can click on them as well instead of being summoned. But yeah, that far left button will clean your screen up.
And feel free to suggest some lumping categories, or if you think one could be worded better, yeah, feel free to take yourself off mute or even just add an orange sticky of your own. If you see something that belongs to a category that exists, feel free to pop that in there. Right now, in case you're not looking at the bottom, we've got kind of 4 themes that are emerging. I'm seeing like connection, like I'm thinking like personal connection here with things like lack of eye contact, no body language. We have participation or attention. It's difficult to get people to focus or to know whether they're focusing. Things can be boring. There's timing, so about the process taking longer, difficult to respect people's time, and technology. So internet connection, tool challenges, things like that. So yeah, as I said, if you can think of more, feel free to add more. If you can see some things that belong in these categories, feel free to pop them in there. A lot of really good ideas here, guys, and unique ones from our last session as well.
No sé.
Ooh, I'm curious about this one that says flat. Could someone elaborate on that? Let me know what that one means.
Yes, our screen is totally flat.
Oh, it is. So maybe that goes with this personal connection one here.
Yes.
Yeah. Good point. I haven't thought about it like that.
Then sometimes you don't even know like which meeting you're all because they all look the same, you know?
Yeah. We were just talking about group photos that you take in Zoom and how they all kind of like, you could be anywhere doing anything.
We took a group photo in a Halloween costume recently, so maybe we need more costume workshops. Sarah, would you like to share a screen, or is it working okay for me to be the screen share here?
Yeah, I think I'm looking at the same thing as you. I'm kind of popping back and forth as I see the rest of these sticky notes. So I think that's just fine. So far I feel like everything's fitting quite well into these 4 categories. So since we're looking at having 3 breakout groups, our vote should be pretty easy here.
And maybe, Sarah, we did have some people join us in the last minute. So what we're doing here on the Miro board, and I shared the link in the chat, is on the left, you can add sticky notes on the good things that you have encountered in virtual meetings. And on the right side, in the yellow or slightly orange stickies, bad things that just didn't work and that we should try to fix or avoid. And those, the bad, Sarah is clustering them. And we will then work on those in our breakout rooms, which is the next exercise.
I think I'm seeing quite a lot on this concept of screen fatigue, and I think I'm going to separate that out as a separate one from technology, if that makes sense for everybody, and then we can vote on what in particular we want to focus on. Okay. I think that's about us clustered. So the next thing we're going to do is move into a vote. And this vote is about which of these broader categories, those orange sticky notes, we want to dive into and spend the rest of our breakout groups talking about. So for context, we're going to be looking at these like drivers or indirect threats of people's inability to engage in a virtual space. And we're going to be talking about what things drive that inability and what strategies we can use to overcome them. So Cristina is going to help us set up a vote for your top 3 of these broad categories. So which 3 would you most like to discuss for the rest of our time? So those things to vote on are those orange stickies. So connection, personal connection, participation or attention, timing, screen fatigue, and technology. And you'll see in a moment that Cristina will open up a voting session. So you can click that blue join voting link and just click on your top 3 of these bad things here.
Thanks, Sarah. And to click, you click on the plus button. And if you wanted to use all of your votes on one idea because you think it's so important, you can do that.
And just for clarity, Cristina, because I see that we've got plus signs on all of the sticky notes, we're just voting on those orange categories, correct? So your top 3 of those 5 orange sticky notes.
Yes.
Okay.
On the 4, right? The 4 sticky notes.
Yeah,
There's
5
Oh,
actually.
5. Sorry, I didn't copy one of them over. Just hold on.
No worries, that was a late addition. A late splitting in the lumping and splitting process.
Which one is missing? The screen.
Probably screen fatigue. Yeah.
I got it.
Oh, you got it. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Heather.
So we're going to vote on the voting board.
I think the vote already happened on the other board. At least I voted on the other board.
Yeah.
And it looks like we've got 22 seconds left here.
We have 19 people already voted.
Great. If you're having trouble voting, let us know. You've got 8 seconds for us to sort it out. Okay.
So I don't know if you can see the results. If not, I can copy them in from my board.
Yeah, I can see the results. Curious that, Heather, it looked like in your screen share, no votes cast. I can see the top 3 on my end. Looks like that human connection question, participation or attention, and finally technology were the top three issues.
Do you want to, yeah, perfect.
Okay. So that's great. So that helps set us up for the rest of our session. We're going to be going into our 10-minute break now, and then we'll be put in breakout rooms upon our return.
See you shortly.
Thanks, everyone. So we'll see you in 45 minutes past whatever hour you're in.
Sarah, James wrote in the chat that some people voted on the left and some on the right, so we might want to just do a tallying again.
Diagram and then coming up with some strategies for how we'll do that. We'll also start with a brief introduction when we get into our breakout rooms, where we'll be introducing ourselves and just a quick introduction to who we are and sharing a very short story of something that we have seen in one of our virtual workshop settings. Anything else before we pop into our respective corners? All good? All right. I will open up the rooms and we will see you on the proverbial other side.
Favorite houseplants, whatever the things are that you would share at a coffee machine.
Is that favorite husbands?
Ooh. Oh, I said favorite houseplants, but your favorite husband. Also fine.
misheard.
Yeah. You might share your favorite husband at the coffee machine. Too funny. Okay, looks like we're 11 minutes past the hour, so hopefully everyone is trickling back in from break. Before we get into those report backs, we're just going to do a quick group photo. Now, quick disclaimer, if you would not like your photo shared, it'll probably be used for the CCNet Rally distribution, so in promotion of the rally or wrapping up. If you don't want your name or photo shared in that way, that's totally okay. Just send me screen.
We lost your sound momentarily.
Can you hear me now? Okay, great. I think I leaned on my headset mute button there. Yeah, so just let us know, send the facilitators, myself or Heather or Cristina or Andrew a private message in the chat. We'll make sure your photo doesn't get shared. So I'm just going to switch to gallery view. We're going to have the different facilitators taking a different screen, so we should be able to get it all at once. So maybe on the count of 3, we'll get everyone to smile and say awkward Zoom photo. Okay, 1, 2, 3, awkward Zoom photo. Okay, facilitators, did we get it?
I think so.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Just gonna make sure I have that saved. Okay, and with that, we can move along to the report back. So hopefully each group assigned a reporter to share. I'll go back to sharing my screen again so we can take a look at the awesome work you did on the Miro boards. So who is our reporter for group 1?
We have Fernando. Amen.
Thanks, Fernando. And I'll get Cristina to just put our timer on the screen. Each group will have 3 minutes to share, and we'll save our questions to the end where we'll have a bit of a discussion period. If you do have something to add to each group, feel free to add those as comments in the chat as well.
Okay, good morning, good night, everybody. So in our group, we discussed that, human connection or the people connection, and the main challenge here is the lack of precisely, the opportunity to interact more lively and vivid and maybe unstructured. So one of the key recommendations, we have many of them, but the key interventions were having small groups, try to do as much of that setting in the workshops, and precisely limit the screen time and sharing the screen time like we are doing right now, because then you're focused on the screen and not on the people. So try to balance that, or at least limits sharing the screen as much. So you can see faces, you can see smiles, you can see interactions generally, no? Particularly in small groups. So this is a good combination for that, no? And then another thing is key to plan previously all these meetings, precisely thinking that how are you going to provide the spaces for interaction among participants, and ensure that the process stays very interesting and compelling for people, no? And finally, the other one, not finally, but yeah, the importance, we all know that is the icebreakers and with some body exercises through the process at the beginning, but not only at the beginning, but also along the workshops or the meetings. Yeah? And how much time? I still have half time. Also, we emphasize to discuss a lot about the importance of the moderator to set up the stage. Obviously, the participants will also need to have their role in terms of how much interaction they want to have. But the moderator is key to actually facilitate that and set the stage and allow people to more freely interact or not, depending on the purpose of the session, no? Or the exercise. I think those are the main, maybe as a summary, have small group meetings, limit sharing the screen to allow people to see each other. Pre-planning in advance is very important. The role of the facilitator is key to set the stage for that interaction and have those icebreakers in place. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And does anyone else from group one want to add in your last 24 seconds of sharing? We can also go a little over. Okay. Given we are a little bit ahead of schedule, not just the 8 seconds, but in general, we have decided to be virtually nimble as you need to be, and we can offer a little bit of space after each one of these report backs. So folks from the other group, do you have any questions about this one? Are there any other ideas that you would have come up with for how to strategies to overcome some poor human connection? Things that you used or experienced as a participant, maybe.
I can chime in. We do a lot of ice breaking in our workshops, where we do a lot of trying to provide a space for people to really connect through some various tools that are all linked into the ultimately to what we're trying to accomplish that day. We try to dovetail those together, but it seems to work really well. We've gotten a lot of real positive feedback on that.
Does anyone have any favorite icebreakers that have helped bridge that connection barrier that they've experienced?
I like one, but then I heard that in one meeting, someone was very upset by it. So, but it's that you tell two truths and a lie about yourself, and you can be very creative about, the truths, like, something that people won't really know if it's true or not, and then others have to guess. And and you can turn it into something fun, like, you know, which one was the truth and the lie. And
Yeah, that's a good one. You learn a lot about your coworkers that way too, I find. I can also share one that I've tried in a conservation standards workshop. We had already had a discussion, a breakout group on vision before. So we'd already kind of started talking about our visions. And the next day we started with a warm up where people tried to draw their vision using Jamboard. And it involved a lot of setting up the space of no one here is an artist. We're all expecting this to be no beautiful works of art. And it was actually a lot of fun as people kind of struggled through the tools and tried to draw a very funny looking moose. Okay, anyone else to add right before we move on?
Erica shared one in the chat. So Erica, if you want to briefly share it, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, just having turning on some music and having like a dance break.
Love that.
People, like playing something really peppy and happy, like the song "Happy" or something like that. Just gets everybody smiling and moving.
Love that idea. Thanks, Erica. Okay, moving on to group two. Group two focused on the theme of attention. So participating through not being able to pay attention. And everything went, okay, there we go.
Can you hear me? This is Carol. Do I have my
Yeah,
speaker on?
Carol.
Okay, all
yes,
right.
we can hear you loud and clear.
All right, so we had the similar of poor participation and engagement as our main challenge that we were trying to come up with. And you'll see some overlap here, but contributing factors is that, yes, we're not in the room, and therefore people tend to multitask, and they're easily distracted by emails and other people, the phones. It's easier to look away. Nobody's watching you all the time. So some strategies around that that we kind of came up with is, obviously establishing some basic ground rules to try to mitigate that, which you're in a virtual space. So there's a whole paradigm reflection here of different ways of trying to think about things. Maybe it's playing with your camera and making yourself hidden, talking about camera etiquette, trying to have rewards, both, for good behavior and maybe some types of, consequences for poor behavior. So, so then the other area that we saw was, of course, you're at home, and so you're being distracted by other things at home, and you're not in the physical space of a meeting. And again, the eyes are not on you, but maybe trying to get people to make sure that they're going to pay attention to the extent possible is trying to have them do more homework, making sure that they're prepared for the meeting in terms of tutorials and training and that kind of thing. There's so many different stimuluses that are going on, so you want people to come in and fully engaged. A lot of this kind of overlaps in weird ways, and so we have the idea that people are just not comfortable being on screen, on a camera. They're shy, they're not with people, so they tend to disconnect. And how do you respond and get people to come back in? You've seen so many effective ways like polling and voting and having people forced to respond to questions, making sure that you spend time with people to get them up to speed on the technology and how to use the technology and communicate, whether that's ahead of time or in person. And the same challenges fall to the facilitators that are running the meeting and their abilities to actually be on top of things. And we talked a lot about having teams, looking at different tools online, having YouTube type opportunities where you can train each other on how to best use particular tools. Of course, practice is a big one. And just kind of trying to think of all the alternatives as a team, the challenges that you might run into. And so more of a team approach. Do I still have a minute left here?
I gave you some extra time.
Oh, you gave some extra time. Oh, great. Okay. Well, there's a lot that overlap with what we kind of heard in the other one, yet, in general, we felt like we had the distractions at home, the distractions of not working with technology all the time, the fact that you're not interacting with people, you don't have the eye contact, and trying to overcome all those barriers with really creative ways, whether it be through tutorials, whether it be through the icebreakers that we just kind of talked about, making sure that we have humor and that we have the right kind of breaks, but also really focusing in on how do we get people prepared for the meeting ahead of time and make sure that they can be comfortable. So that's kind of what I have. I'll let anybody else jump in.
Okay, anyone else from group 2, anything to add? Great summary, by the way, Carol. You promised us you were going to stumble through that, and that was very smooth. Okay, and anything from anybody else? Anything that you've seen that's been effective strategy for helping people pay attention?
One thing I use is, like coming back from a break, like we did now with taking the photo, or asking people to just give like a smoke signal or a life signal in the chat. That can be a good practice just to see if people are there and connected, and keeping exercises, moving people through shorter parts of exercises versus, very lengthy things that enable people to just disconnect and work on other things.
Yeah.
Something I've used several times, and not only in virtual workshops, is, for instance, when I'm doing the presentation, every 5 to 7 slides, I ask a question about something I mentioned. So I made a quick quiz about something I mentioned. For instance, I don't know, we're talking about a vision statement, and I say, what is wrong here? And I say it's different characteristic of a good vision, and I say it should be very long. So people need to say, okay, what is wrong here, or something like that. So asking this kind of funny questions every, I don't know, 5, 7, 10 slides makes people to keep interested, because they always want to give the right answer.
I like that idea. I was really interested in someone's suggestion about using virtual rewards. So ways to really encourage engagement when it happens. One of their suggestions was showing like little cute clips of cute animals. I'm curious if anyone else has seen something like this, and what you saw as a virtual reward or a way to encourage engagement when it happens.
Miro has this confetti animation, which we use very sparingly. And each time we do use it to celebrate something, the team loves it. So it's a silly little reward, but it actually somehow works.
We got confettied. Oh, yay. Heather, your suggestion got confettied. Yeah, I can see myself getting a little dopamine hit every time that happens. Anyone else? Okay. Okay, thanks everybody. Getting some more reactions here. Moving on to group 3. This was the theme that focused on technology.
And that's for me to report. So we had identified kind of 3 threats. In addition to the poor participation and engagement, we had tech failures and limitations, and operator limitations and errors. And so kind of, 3 more or less rows in our results chain, and some of the key contributing factors, like leaving people behind who cannot get the technology, and there's a variety of things contributing to that. Lack of comfort or familiarity with computers and technology in general. And so some of the strategies we had for that were training for people who are less experienced in virtual tools, using hybrid meetings. Once we're able to do that again, some online and others in person, and with kind of dual facilitators in remote situations kind of related to that. For the issue of the technology itself, or the hardware and software, that, you know, there's some cost issues, low capacity or old computers in some cases. And then kind of related to that, difficulty to get everybody connected, poor connections, limited internet connectivity. And so the strategy that was brainstormed to kind of address both of those aspects of technological issues were mobilizing funds that would be saved from your travel to go do meetings in persons and put that towards technology, both, you know, maybe providing computers with better capacity where needed, but also maybe broadband, some kind of a strategy that helps to, you know, get broadband in more places or places where we need them, but kind of using that savings from not having to travel. And then we also had a virtual inclusion. You know, there's some other issues around lack of inclusivity, language, technology, geography, and you know, finding ways to address things like the language barrier, the simultaneous translation services you can get on Zoom, using CCNet to find a coach fluent in that language. So those were kind of the highlights, I think. It's a lot on here and a lot of things contributing and a lot of things we have no control over. But anybody else in my group want to add something?
Thank you so much, Debbie.
You're welcome.
Okay, thanks,
That's a
Debbie.
great
I would
summary.
like to
Thank you.
would like to add my camera not being on while I'm sharing my screen is a technological issue I'm currently facing. Anything from anybody in the other groups? Have you found strategies that had helped you overcome problems with technology?
We found working with local community members, sometimes, you know, just asking them how they communicate and how, you know, what works for them. And in some rural areas, people use WhatsApp. So we have been sending some information that way, like short videos and telling them, you know, when meetings will take place. And sometimes people just join by phone. And so that's what we have been doing in some projects.
I heard a really great example from a colleague who was doing a workshop with a lot of Indigenous elders, and it was so important to get their participation that they had people in their community and in their bubble if possible, or wearing masks and staying 6 feet away if not. But they had young people go physically to the elders' houses and manipulate the technology for them while they were able to speak. And that, yeah, such a cool, like, yeah, going all out to try to get that get over that technology barrier.
We discussed using dual facilitators in remote situations for the same reason, sending somebody into a village and having somebody in the main room.
Awesome. Any other strategies you've seen or thought about or experienced to help overcome these technology barriers? Okay. Okay, thanks everybody. I'll turn my video back on now that I'm not sharing. Hopefully technology is on my side. Okay. Yeah, so we have the next 20-ish 17-ish, 15-ish minutes to have a bit of a discussion period. So we're really curious if you have more questions about virtual coaching. So things that were not answered by the session so far, maybe virtual coaching experiences or challenges that you're encountering, and we can troubleshoot some possible solutions. Or just commiserate with you. Yeah, so any questions you have about virtual coaching?
Sarah, there had been a chat question earlier. I think Jean asked it, if we could demonstrate how to freeze frames and things in Miro. And as you saw, some of it was too frozen, and we can demonstrate it, but basically you put a lasso around the frames. If you want, we can show it here. But the thing is that when you put the lasso around the whole thing, sometimes it takes all the itty bitty boxes that you have inside and freezes them or locks them as well. But it doesn't always do it. So you have to double check. And that's where as you noticed, something went off in our board. So we thought we had checked all those details, but you need to double and triple check those things. So yeah, Sarah's saying we can ask the questions in the chat and we can address them as we go. Would it be useful to demonstrate how to lock or freeze in Miro?
Yeah, I can't find the lasso.
Okay, I will share my screen.
Awesome, thanks, Cristina.
And you have to be a board editor to have those privileges. So most of us right now don't. So it's really just Cristina who can, who has that control, right? Because you don't want the collaborators in a workshop locking things down all the time. So it's a VIP privilege.
So for example, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. So here are the topics that we were voting on, right? So if I want to lasso all of these, I will start like here on the top left, and I will press the Shift button on my keyboard. And at the same time, I will press the left button on the mouse. See how I'm putting a lasso around it? Should I do it again? And we should get, let's see, of course, like Murphy's Law, it's not working, but we should get, do you see here, long press to unlock? So I will unlock, and let's try it again. I'm not sure if, nope, it's not working, but it should. So I should get that same symbol. It should be unlocked. So I should be able to, let's say, merge these. Oh, now it works. So do you see, I get the little lock thing. So now I can lock 7 items. And now these will move together.
Thanks, Cristina. This was, I've noticed a few times so far since joining some of the rally sessions, somebody was like, oh, quick, we need to lock that. And so maybe the question is more, going through your boards as you set them up. And if you've got stations or whatnot, how to ensure, until a user comes in and starts moving things around, you don't know that the map moved unexpectedly. So, I guess, is it just a trial and error? You have to go through and just test everything and lock it as you go, or just, I don't know, just little tips like that on using Miro would be helpful.
Yeah, so for example, in preparation for the session today with all of you, we did a similar session a few days ago, and someone else set up the Miro board. So we copied all the frames into my board, and Heather very kindly tested all of the things, and Heather and I did some troubleshooting, but still there's, you know, there can still be surprises of things that, you know, you thought you had checked. So, but I would say, just as with facilitation in general, it's preparation, preparation, and preparation, and making sure you have some people to help you troubleshoot and go in and check. Yeah.
There's a question in the chat, kind of in relation to that preparation from Carol, who asked if there is a checklist for someone to use to prepare for a virtual meeting. I put a link into the chat to a page on the CCNet website. It's called Virtual Coaching. In there is an online meeting resources toolkit, which contains a ton of great resources, and some of them I'm fairly certain are about preparation and have some checklists in there as well. But I'm curious, has anyone else found good tools or checklists, or what do you do to prepare for a virtual meeting? Do you have your own list that you consult? Yeah, anytime you have answers to these, definitely feel free to put them in the chat or put your hand up.
And Sarah, Erica has a great suggestion in the chat that as we all develop templates, it would be wonderful if we could start a collection. And that's one of the beauties of Miro that other whiteboards don't have. It allows you to share templates. So there are some tricks, however, you need to set it up for others to copy. Otherwise, it can't be done. So for example, if Erica has a Miro board, and she invites me as editor, I can copy the frames into Erica's Miro, and then you can use it. So yeah, let's look into that of, you know, how can we share a library of useful templates? And in the last session, there was also an awesome recommendation that we should think about creating a working group on virtual coaching, which has been my dream for the past years, but we never got enough traction. So anyone interested in helping and contributing to that, we would love to have like a community of practice or working group in CCNet, and I'm sure we're ready for it. There's plenty of things to share.
Thanks, Cristina. We had someone in the chat suggesting that for when they're preparing, that they use a run sheet, making sure they have all the steps set. I call it a milestone list. I think it's the same thing. And Jim pointed out that you can also find a lot of these good tools just by doing a quick DuckDuckGo search or Google, depending on your preference. Awesome. And Debbie pointed out, yeah, that Miro has some of those templates to share, so that's awesome. Okay,
and one thing, sorry, Sarah, to interrupt. One thing we use, for example, for this session and for many of the rally sessions is a detailed facilitators agenda. So if you know Session Lab, it's very similar to what they use, but that's one thing I learned from a rural planner in the early 90s, and I'm sold on it. It's just so useful to think through the process and work through step-by-step things, and it adds your checklist, your links, and who's doing what. So I strongly recommend that.
I got Session Lab a month ago, and I think it saved me hundreds of hours in agenda preparation time. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but I swear it's true. Anita, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, I would like to share a reflection, because as you know, most of the breakout room was thinking about the situation analysis and what are all the problems related to the virtual meetings. And then, of course, we started to think about the strategies, but we did not go all the way through to find the results that we want. So a lot of was on the kind of negative side of the virtual meetings. But I think it's good for us to go back to the good part when we start the session, to remember about the beauty of the virtual meetings. There's so many good things happening here. Of course, we are all under a fatigue, but if we look forward about what we have ahead of us, Now we learned how to do it, and we can choose. Sometimes we can travel, be in person, sometimes we can be here in Zoom, and being Zoom allow us to have time in between sessions to prepare things that we had to do overnight sometimes. So there's a lot of good things. So I just want to share you a positive feeling, because I am like really, really tired of being here in Zoom. Just remember that there's so much good things ahead of us now that we learn all these. We don't need to dial in conference call numbers anymore. That's amazing. Remember how stressed we were in the past. So this is my reflection. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Anita. And definitely we welcome any other positive reflections on this virtual space. I think it's a great thing to remember that while we're, using this opportunity to try to solve some problems, there's so much good that this opportunity has brought us as well.
I had a question, and it kind of got, well, I just wondered how you decided on Miro instead of Miro.
Yeah, Cristina, can you speak to that?
We just, among the facilitation group, we just, that was the tool we had available, and we had used it and liked it. And we know that other sessions are demonstrating Miro. So we figured that it would be nice to, in the rally, demonstrate a gamut of different available tools and what we like. But I'd love to hear from the other co-hosts about why we decided to use Miro.
Yeah, I would say they're both great tools, both really useful for conservation standards. One thing that I like about Miro is the ability to do those arrows quite simply. I haven't used Miro in a while, but the last time I was there, I found that was a little clunky.
I haven't seen that. I haven't found that. So I had a little harder time with the Miro, just maybe because I'm more familiar with Miro at this point, but.
Always the case, eh? New technology is always more challenging.
Yeah, I would agree. We've been doing situation analyses in Mural, M-U-R-A-L, and the arrow function in Mural is just awful. It's not flexible. They become detached, and I think Miro, M-I-R-O, is much better when you're doing a situation analysis diagram.
Thanks, Lisa. How annoying is it that those words sound exactly the same? Very tricky.
And there were some other comments in the chat, Sarah.
Yeah, so I see a question from Carol. Have people who have been doing these virtual workshops and planning, do you find you still get the information you need to move through the process? Or have you lost or increased effectiveness? For my part, I can answer this of the way we do these processes in Parks Canada. We previously used to kind of condense everything into a 5-day in-person workshop. And it was great, and it's vibrant, and people are excited, and there's only so much you can achieve in 5 days, and that momentum would get really stunted as soon as the workshop ended. So I'm actually finding that virtually being able to space things out over time, meeting a couple times a week, checking in with virtual meetings a month or two later, I think for myself, we're moving through the conservation standards process more effectively in this paradigm. Losing some of that relationship, but that's one of the trade-offs for us. Do other people want to chime in on that?
I haven't had the opportunity to do combined in-person workshops and virtual workshops, but I'm thinking that now that we all have the experience with doing virtual meetings, I think combining those two together is going to be really great, because like you said, if you have like a 3-day workshop and you can only get so much done, then you can continue the conversation virtually, and it's better than just doing it email or by phone.
I agree, Lisa. I think it'll be really exciting when we can use the best of both worlds. Others?
Yeah, I found that the virtual workshops are very productive. However, the challenge increasingly as things have gone virtual is motivating the group to work asynchronously. So doing any work, kind of homework or prep work. Somehow people are, life happens now in Zoom, and if it's not a Zoom meeting, it's not happening. So that has been a challenge. So overall, the workshops are productive, but we're having to have more time in workshops because the non-workshop work is slipping.
I'm not sure how relevant it is, but I sit on the board of a thing called the Himalayan Trust, which works in very remote places in Nepal, where connectivity is just a dream for the future, really. But one of the projects that the trust have been involved in is setting up computer labs in schools, which actually work offline. So the material is provided so that they can be downloaded onto hard disks, and the participants, in this case the students, can beaver away on assignments at least that bring them up to speed. And then there's I'll just post a link in the chat where you could read a little bit more about this intervention, but it's been phenomenally successful and doesn't rely on high-tech machines and internet connections. It may, capital may, have an application that's worth thinking about.
Thanks, Bruce, for sharing. That's great. Yeah. Anyone else have things that have worked for them for promoting asynchronous work? That is people doing like work on their own, not in a meeting space.
I think always like the leadership support and setting those expectations and not just setting the expectations, but also following up. And where there is like sort of not participating or not doing that homework, that there's check-in points where leadership is saying, no, this is really important and I expect you to do this. Yeah, those are the most productive teams I have, is where they know they're actually getting a lot out of it, but they know that leadership is looking and wanting to see the progress.
Sarah, here in the Yucatan Peninsula, Fernando and I are working with consultants to do some data revisions, and then we analyze that and we bring it to smaller teams, like technical teams, who further review it and give feedback. So for example, for prioritizing threats and whatnot, we do that in smaller technical teams. And then when there's something to report, we take that to the larger alliance, with the program directors and decision makers. So that way we're trying to really divide up who is engaged when and make the best use of their time when it's a good moment. And we did something similar with Indigenous communities, where we hired a local consultant and worked in similar ways.
Thanks, Cristina. So another question in the chat here. How about tips for when everyone can be in a room together, but coach is zooming in? I'm finding I'm getting more and more requests like this. I think as local restrictions begin to lift and people can gather, but they still can't fly me across the country. I don't know if other people experience this. What I do is I strongly recommend against it. I found that it's really hard to zoom in on the coach that's virtual when you've got people in person. And moreover, if people are all in person, they're probably not able to use the virtual tools in the same way. So we're kind of like double hamstringed in terms of the resources that we have available. So I would recommend if regardless of whether those people are together, that they spend that time virtually, on their own computer, so they're able to engage in the tools, and maybe spend break time or coffee time or some other structure where they're able to socialize if they're able to be together. That's my experience. I would love to hear if people have been able to do that successfully, the kind of hybrid model.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to share because I'm the one who posed that question. So we've kind of been in the hybrid model the whole time. So we haven't had COVID here yet. So everywhere can have group meetings, but we can't travel between islands. And so that's a huge challenge. And so the capacity of our coaches from island to island really varies. So I've taken on more of a mentorship role. So, you know, we do a lot of like, okay, you know, you guys can have a meeting, these are the things, but there's something about like, you know, when you can talk with somebody through their thinking that I'm not able to do. We've used things like the Google Docs. So all the notes that are being like anything people write down, tell them to write in the Google Docs so I can at least see it. And so I'm trying to play more of like I'm observing, and then later I can say to the facilitator in the room, oh, these are some of my thoughts. But sometimes there's a lot of information lost, unfortunately. And so we've always had to travel, and in the past, and had this issue even before COVID about, you know, working virtually and that sort of thing, because you really can't travel all the time. But now not being able to travel at all and figuring out how to do this has really kind of changed our approach in some ways to coaching.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Liz. Those are some innovative ideas. And I love that idea of increasing capacity where it is. I think that's awesome. Okay, folks, about wrapping up, I think I'll pass the ball back to Cristina for our closing.
Thank you, Sarah. So we hope this session has been rewarding. We certainly learned a lot, and we really hope you take us up on the offer to start a working group for virtual coaching. And we will be sending a follow-up email to everyone who participated in these sessions. And we do have a favor to ask of you. As you know, we like to walk the talk in CCNet. So if you can help us to fill out your session evaluation, that would be wonderful. And I will share the link. Oh, it's in the chat already. Thank you, Heather. So maybe let's spend the next 2 or 3 minutes. If you can help us to fill it out, then you're done with it and you're ready to go on with your lives. And we also have a really fun community board that we set up. So if you haven't checked it out, we will share the link here as well. You can add insights, any pending questions, and we are producing some word clouds with Gustavo and Lavernita, who are both here, with the words that you all share in your evaluation. So go back there and look at the fun word cloud we will produce from this session.
Thanks, everyone.
So we're not going to say goodbye yet, just a few more minutes for you to fill out your evaluation forms. And one good trick that I learned from my friend Anita was that in these sessions, if we can offer to stay on, you know, a few extra minutes, it's sometimes nice to help so that the sessions don't end so abruptly. So I'm happy to stay on if anyone has extra questions or just wants to hang out for a few extra minutes. So no rush, but we know it's late in some places. So if you have to leave, that's fine as well.
So if you're hanging around by the coffee cooler, water cooler or coffee machine, our virtual coffee machine has gotten awesome. So many pets, so many fun faces. Very beautifully decorated cakes.
Wow,
And a
what
little nod
beautiful
to
spider.
our pending Canadian. Yeah, yeah.
Where is that pumpkin spider from?
That